Welcome back to the revamped Spotlight. This is a fun show we had a long time ago. It was our second fun show that hasn't been around for a long time, but we're bringing it back to highlight and spotlight different groups, organizations, things that are making an impact in the FIRST community. For our first episode here, we have John Kentfield, the co-founder and president of the Rainbow STEM Alliance, on to talk more about how their organization is impacting FIRST, what they're looking to have for future impacts, and how you can get involved as well too to make sure that FIRST and other organizations are an inclusive environment, as well as joining up with the Rainbow STEM Alliance. And if your group is making a great positive impact in the FIRST community, reach out to us, admin at firstupdatesnow.com, to come on the Spotlight to tell your story. You can also reach out to us on Discord at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow, or any social media channel under at @firstupdatesnow. Your destination for FIRST content, updates, and gaming.
Welcome to the fun.
FIRST Updates Now is supported by Stryker Careers. If you are a college student or recent graduate looking for an incredible internship, take a look at Stryker. Stryker provides a housing stipend, great pay, and an opportunity to work with state-of-the-art medical technology equipment. Discover why so many FIRST alumni are coming to Stryker for their internship or career at careers.stryker.com. FIRST Updates Now is supported by the Milwaukee School of Engineering. MSOE offers week-long summer camps where high school students get to preview college by living on campus, exploring engineering programs, experimenting in labs, meeting with professors, and participating in fun group activities. Are you ready to experience STEM at MSOE? Visit msoe.edu/summer to learn more and register. And for our first episode of Spotlight, we welcome on John Kentfield, who's the president and co-founder of the Rainbow STEM Alliance. John, thanks so much for coming on and talk to us more about RSA.
Thank you for having me.
So talk to us a little bit about Rainbow STEM Alliance, what it is, how did it get started, and what's your mission?
Sure. So the Rainbow STEM Alliance is a 501c3 not-for-profit. We were founded to support LGBTQ youth who are actively engaging in STEM, specifically competitive STEM programs, places like FIRST or VEX, RECF, things like that. So that's where our primary focus is to really work with those students as much as possible. We were founded in 2018. As you can see, my co-founders at the top there are Brian Baylor and Tom Wexler. And so the three of us got together and formed the RSA to really support the LGBTQ of FIRST students specifically at FIRST. But we also knew that we wanted to get into other programs and support LGBTQ youth throughout the K through 12 competitive STEM sphere.
So that's something I wanted to ask. And there's that. So we've talked. We had an episode with members of LGBTQ plus at FIRST a few months ago as well. So the main differentiator is that's specifically for FIRST, and that tends to be students, if I remember correctly. And then Rainbow STEM Alliance is really meant for potentially all STEM programs. Is that right?
Yeah. And so that's one of the great things about the RSA is we are not focused primarily on LGBTQ at FIRST. We definitely support them. They are a student organization, so we help provide some guidance on occasion. But for the most part, we try and stay fairly hands-off from how they run all of their things. But we do provide them with resources and financial assistance and support, kind of like a booster club in a way. Where we do the LGBTQ plus of FIRST pins every year to be given away at events. And we provide them with, this year we had stickers at championship. In the past, we've also provided them with some pamphlets and things like that to hand out. So we do a lot to support them specifically, but we do want to get into other programs as well.
So, John, what are maybe some other programs that the Rainbow STEM Alliance is looking at having impact in as well, too, outside of FIRST?
So, on top of FIRST, we're looking to try and help support LGBTQ youth in programs like VEX through the RECF.
Sure.
And we're also looking at things like the National Science Fair or the Best Robotics program. We know there are a lot more avenues to support LGBTQ youth who are in grades K through 12 beyond just first. So we definitely want to make more connections there and kind of figure out how we can assist those students in those locations too.
So from a resource standpoint on there, like I know there's the visual part of supplying, the pins and the ribbons, that sort of thing. From a resource and support standpoint, how does Rainbow STEM Alliance impact those in the community?
So like you said, we do the pronoun pins. We do pronoun, or in the past we've done pronoun ribbons. We do the LGBTQ first pins. But we also make sure that those are available at events for free, completely no charge. So that's kind of one of our biggest things. On top of that, we also have a scholarship available, 2 scholarships actually, for $500 a piece to support any first senior or alum who is looking to get into STEM. We are not limiting it to LGBTQ plus members. We definitely want to include allies and other community members as well. And the big thing for us is just seeing how these students are impacting their community and spreading STEM. So
how can somebody apply for that scholarship if they're interested?
So it has passed for this current year.
Sure.
The application deadline was May 31st. But in the future, it's always going to be up on the First Scholarship portal, and all of the information is there for that. And then we give out 2 $500 scholarships every year. So even if you are an alum of either First Tech Challenge or the First Robotics competition, we encourage you to apply. We did get a few alums, not necessarily alumni, who applied this year. So it's pretty exciting to see that.
Changing gears just a little bit, something I want to ask you is you've talked about like what you're trying to do within the programs, within like FIRST and RCF, right? What is maybe something organizations like FIRST and RCF or VEX in this standpoint do to make their programs more welcoming? Like what changes would you like to see these programs make that would make it an inclusive, welcoming environment?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that they can do. And we've worked with FIRST headquarters quite a bit to help them over the last 5 years or so become more inclusive. Things like this year, FIRST championship provided pronoun pronoun ribbons for the name badges, so that we didn't have to do that. There are also ways that they can do that where they can incorporate it into the name badging system for all events. It can be added to places like SIMS and VIMS and the FIRST dashboard system, where they can opt in to put their pronouns if someone chooses. And so we're working with them to try and increase those kinds of opportunities and make it easier for especially trans and non-binary members of our community to change their name, or at least make sure that their preferred name is being used in more and more locations wherever possible.
Yeah, I know that was a topic at championships that got brought up, was with the name badges of doing that. Have you seen improvement from that happen, at least from FIRST?
It is definitely a place that there's still room for improvement.
Sure.
There's no denying that. There were a few examples where there were some students who unfortunately had an issue at Worlds with getting their name badges changed to their preferred names. But we are, like I said, we are still working with them. They've been extremely receptive about making these changes. And a lot of it's just, there's a lot on the back end that they have to work through to make sure that it happens in a manner that still complies with things like YPP. Ultimately, this is a student organization, and ensuring that our students are safe is a priority. So
let's take a quick break to thank our sponsors for this show. First Updates Now is supported by Stryker Careers. If you are a college student or recent graduate looking for an incredible internship, take a look at Stryker. Stryker provides a housing stipend, great pay, and an opportunity to work with state-of-the-art medical technology equipment. Discover why so many FIRST alumni are coming to Stryker for their internship or career at careers.stryker.com. First Updates Now is supported by the Milwaukee School of Engineering. MSOE offers week-long summer camps where high school students get to preview college by living on campus, exploring engineering programs, experimenting in labs, meeting with professors, and participating in fun group activities. Are you ready to experience STEM at MSOE? Visit msoe.edu/summer to learn more and register. And how about from from the general public, or more specifically members of like FIRST or VEX or RACF? What is something that, or maybe a few things that some of us can do to either help be good allies in the community, to be welcoming, to provide an inclusive environment? What would you like to see?
There's a lot of simple things, like just if you start a team meeting, like if you're a team leader, start your team meetings with an introduction of yourself with your pronouns, making it so that pronoun usage is a more common thing will make it easier, especially for trans and non-binary students. For instance, I identify as a cisgender man, which means I identify as a man. I was assigned male gender at birth. So for me, using he, him pronouns is what I've always done and what I've always used, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But there are members who use they, them as their pronouns, or may have transitioned and want to use she, her. And just making sure that you're using the proper pronouns for your students is really life-saving. Because it shows the students that you value them as individuals and who they are as a person. And so just kind of ensuring that you're using the proper names that they want to be recognized as, that their pronouns are recognized properly. And a lot of it has to do with how team leaders lead their teams. You lead by example, your students will follow suit. And honestly, I've seen a lot of really, really amazing students come through the program over the past few years that have actually led their mentors to changing and realizing that they need to make the changes. So listen to your students. They know themselves better than you may think that they do, or that you think you do. So
I think that's a really great piece of advice, because it's somebody I've always tried to think, is that a generational gap? Is it because somebody I'm in my mid-30s, right? And somebody from my age, we grew up with just he, him, she, her sort of thing like that, and it's difficult, I think, to train yourself to try to not, I think many of us want to be open about things and want to be inclusive, but to even position yourself to continually think hey, even in the beginning of this, I didn't start saying I'm he, him or anything like that. It's difficult for somebody like me. So is it just a practice thing, or is there anything else that can be, can be done, or any tips to try to get us to, promote this type of environment?
It's repetition. It's practice. It's the same way you learn any language to begin with, and it is hard. I'm not saying it's easy to do. I get that it's hard. I have friends that have transitioned. I have family that identifies as non-binary. There are times that I still screw up, and I do my best to not. But the big thing is you recognize that you screwed up, you apologize, and you continue to work on it and get better. And that ultimately is a very large thing for these students, is the fact that you recognize that, yes, this is something that I need to work on, something that I need to fix, not an issue with you as your student and your identity.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where it is hard. I often slip up and do not use they, them to identify one of my relatives, because I grew up with them not identifying as non-binary. And so that part is hard. But the biggest thing is recognizing that you're making the mistake and that you're learning and you're trying. And one of the things, because a lot of people come back with, I don't use they, them singularly. But I always, whenever someone mentions that to me and I'm trying to explain how you can use they, them singularly, one of the things that I like to mention is, say you're talking about someone else who you only know by like a name that can be fairly gender neutral, like a Chris, where
Sure.
it could be short for Christopher or Christine or something like that. You only know that person as Chris. You don't know what their gender is to begin with, right? If you're just having a conversation with another friend and they mention their friend Chris, you will refer to Chris as they them naturally. So people are used to using they them as a singular. They're just not used to thinking about an individual that they recognize as an individual with they them pronouns. And so
I've
a
never
lot of
thought
it is
about that.
just,
That's really interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and it's one of the things that I picked up over the last like 2 years or so, and I bring up to people that do mention that, and it's not just people our age in our mid 30s or older. Even younger people still have the same question, and it's one of those things where when you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, I do that
Hmm.
because that's how I was trained, and then you get people that are saying, well, the English language doesn't use it that way, and this is a new generational neo thing, whatever. But then you look at historical authors like Shakespeare who used they them as a gender neutral pronoun back when he was writing.
Sure.
So there are historical examples of it being used that way. It's just a lot of people don't think to recognize it as much.
I think,
So
just going back, I think the hardest thing, if I look at myself personally on things, I think the hardest thing for me is the part of going up to somebody and saying, hey, my name's Tyler. My pronouns are he, him. Can I ask, like, do you just say, can I ask yours? Or like, what's a good way to like ice break that way? Or do you just not say
so
anything at all?
there's a couple of different options there. And this is something that I need to get better at myself, is introducing myself with my pronouns, because again, it's one of those, we grew up not doing that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
to
I
think
just
to
don't know
do
if
that
that's a
is,
Midwest thing, if it's a U.S. thing, if it's a global thing. Like, for me, that like a lot of that's just not the way a lot of people speak around here, and trying to
yeah,
open myself up to have a much larger view than what is my little tight knit community thing. Uh, it's difficult, but it needs to be done.
yeah. And a lot of it can be done in such a way where you do it as an opening statement, if you're in front of a group or
Sure.
something like that. That's a great place to do it. Um, Adding it to things like an email signature,
Oh, I like
or
that.
yeah. So you'll notice my email for both RSA and, I'm fortunate enough to work for Andy Mark. My email at Andy Mark also has my pronouns,
I did
and
notice
it's
that
just,
actually. Yeah.
yeah, it's little things like that. And I am also lucky enough to be able to teach at a local college here in Indiana, and I've added it to that signature as well. And so when I start syllabus day, that's one of the things that I've started to incorporate into my slide deck is, my name is John Kentfield. I use he him pronouns, and please just call me John. Uh, I don't like the formality of Professor or Mr. Kentfield or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's just not who I am.
But
And
what you just said
so,
was very natural there, right? It
yeah,
wasn't like you like made it like my name's John. I go by he, him, or anything like that. It's like you just worked it into your sentence, right?
yeah, and that's the big thing, is incorporating it into our everyday speech patterns helps to normalize it, and helps, even if a student may not be out or openly identifying as non-binary or genderqueer or trans or something like that. For me, especially as a gay man, when I was growing up, hearing little bits of inclusion is literally life saving. Like, my teammates when I was in high school on FRC 173,
Yeah.
I credit with saving my life. They didn't know it then, but they were inclusive, and they were accepting, and this was back in the early 2000s. So little things like that over time snowball and help make the culture change that we want to see in the world.
A couple last things I want to wrap up with. First off, you are running an off-season event coming up in
Yes.
August. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that in Michigan.
Yeah, so I am fortunate enough to have gotten involved with a great group in Michigan. we are running an off season called the Rainbow Rumble.
Love it.
It is, yeah, it's going to be August 5th through 7th. And we know we're going up against a pretty awesome event at WV Rocks. But we definitely want to get a lot more teams to come up. It's going to be in Mason, Michigan. And if you are a partner team of LGBTQ First and watching this, the RSA has offered to sponsor the first 6 partner teams' registration fees.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's one of the cool things that we want to do as the RSA is sponsor and help out to make sure that our partner teams can come up and compete there. So.
Well, looking for you and I were talking a little bit ahead of time. I believe I'll be going to WVR Expo on the way back. I'd love to stop by the event as well, too. I'm sure it'll be fantastic. So make sure you check that out. I know there's a post up on Chief Delphi, but otherwise, what's the website they can go to?
RainbowRumble.org. Super easy. So.
Excellent. Last thing I want to wrap up with as well, too, is a topic that is about a month ago, but it's still something I think is important to cover as well, too, is that first announced that they're going to be continuing single championships in Houston, Texas for the next couple of years. And to give a little bit of context, at least from what's been reverberating in the community, is that Texas in general has not been a very welcoming environment, and in many cases a hostile environment with some of their, I'm not a scholar by any means, but some what seem to be laws for things as well, too. So I'd love to just hear Rainbow STEM Alliance and your reaction to them doing that, and anything that you'd like to see either kept or changed from that.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, there is some executive order and directives from the government in Texas. And they hurt our trans community. There is no getting around that. In terms of first continuing the championship in Houston, as a not-for-profit, I understand the financial impact and burden that is associated with trying to change it. And so while we may not like the fact that it is going to continue in Houston for the next couple of years, we definitely want to work with First to understand the impact that that's having on our community, and hopefully they can work towards either changing the venue or something else in the future. But at the same point, we do understand that there is a very large financial impact, and as a not-for-profit, they have to tread lightly with what they can and can't say, or else they start risking violating their not-for-profit status. And they did also recently put out on one of their Facebook posts about Pride Month a response to the community, which is something that a lot of community members have been waiting for since March, when the executive directives came through from Texas. But in terms of the RSA, we recognize the fact that we may not be able to change First opinion on keeping it in Houston for the next couple of years. But we want to do everything that we can to protect our students and make them feel safe and welcomed. But also, we want to be able to do more for the students who aren't just going for championship. There are trans and non-binary kids who need this gender affirming care that they're at risk of not receiving at this point, and they live there. They live there day in, day out. They don't get to come down for a week and leave. And so while we're not trying to make light of the community's concern or anything like that, we recognize that there are a lot more things that we can actively do to help support the students that live there all year round, not just the ones that are coming down for champs. And that's kind of where we want to focus our priority in terms of the whole situation over the next couple of years, is trying to really focus on states like Texas, or even Indiana, where I am, has recently overridden a governor's veto on trans athletes in sports. And so there are a lot of states, a lot of places that are enacting these laws. There's a law that almost passed in New Hampshire, where First is located, that was an anti-trans law. So these laws are being enacted in more and more locations, and so we have a lot more work to do to really support the community as a whole, but specifically in these locations where these students are being directly affected. So
I appreciate that response, John. And John, if somebody'd like to get more involved with the Rainbow STEM Alliance, where can they go for that, and how can they best get involved?
yeah, so the rainbowstemalliance.org is our website. And we have a Facebook and a Twitter, Instagram, all that. All of those are at STEM Rainbow. And if they want to get more involved, please reach out. Our membership link is on the website as well. We definitely, over the next year, our board has agreed that we want to do more to engage our membership, get more feedback, get more input, figure out ways that we as a community can grow and do more to help support our kids.
And if they're interested in getting any of these really cool pins that you guys have, where can they go for that as well?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I am lucky enough to be able to work for Andy Mark. And as such, we as the RSA have partnered with Andy Mark to sell the LGBTQ First lapel pin as a fundraiser for the RSA. But also our pronoun pins, which we have currently we have he, him, she, her, they, them, or ask me about my pronouns. One of the cool things, we've actually gotten a lot of feedback over the last year and a half or so, 2 years now, I guess, since we really introduced these, in that community members want things like he, they,
Sure.
because there are people who don't necessarily always feel aligned with binary pronouns like he or they. Sometimes they move between them, or she or they, things like that. So we are looking at introducing those over the next year, as well as a couple of new partnerships. So.
Well, John Kenfield, president and co-founder of Rainbow STEM Alliance, thanks a lot for taking the time to tell us more about the Rainbow STEM Alliance. And of course, if you're interested, make sure you check out their website and their social media. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks to Stryker Careers for their support in this video. Stryker's commitment to medical device technology innovation has made it a top career destination for those in FIRST. FIRST alumni and mentors are given top priority in their internship and career applications. Come create the next medical innovation that saves lives at careers.stryker.com. FIRST Updates Now is supported by the Milwaukee School of Engineering. MSOE offers week-long summer camps where high school students get to preview college by living on campus, exploring engineering programs, experimenting in labs, meeting with professors, and participating in fun group activities. Are you ready to experience STEM at MSOE? Visit msoe.edu/summer to learn more and register. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay up to date on our new videos. Keep the conversation going and provide your input to our content. Watch our live shows at twitch.tv/firstupdatesnow. Join our Discord at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow and check out Fun FTC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and First Updates Now on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.